There was one thing in football you could set your watch by. One iron law, passed down for over 40 years, that every fan on earth simply accepted as fact. Germany do not lose penalty shootouts at the World Cup. Ever. From 1982, they had walked to the spot 4 separate times on the biggest stage in the sport. Against France, against Mexico, against England, against Argentina, and 4 times out of 4, they had won. It was not luck. It was an aura, a psychological monster that beat opponents before a single ball was struck. The Germans were the penalty kings, the one team in the world for whom the cruelest lottery in sport was a guaranteed win. We had quite literally just been talking about it as one of the iron certainties of football, the team you would never back against from the spot, the one aura that tactics and technology could not touch. The Germans did not even seem to feel the pressure the rest of us feel at a shootout. The penalty spot was their throne. And then, on a stunned night at the 2026 World Cup against Paraguay, that 44-year-old certainty was dragged out and executed in front of the entire planet. This is the story of the night the Kings finally fell, and how brutally it happened. Let's set the scene. Round of 32. Germany, 4-time world champions, one of the giants of the entire tournament, against Paraguay, a tough, stubborn South American side, but on paper, exactly the kind of team Germany were supposed to grind down and beat. Julian Nagelsmann's Germany were among the favorites. Paraguay were the underdogs nobody fancied, and for long stretches it looked like an upset was brewing, because Paraguay were not there to admire the Germans. They were there to fight. In the 42nd minute, it happened. Julio Enciso, Paraguay's spark, struck, 1-0 to the underdogs, and suddenly a giant was wobbling. Germany, to their credit, responded after the break. In the 54th minute, Kai Havertz hauled them level, 1-1, and now the machine was supposed to kick in. This was the part of the script where Germany, with all their pedigree and all their experience, were meant to take over and put the plucky underdogs away. Except they couldn't. Paraguay would not break. They defended like their lives depended on it, threw bodies in front of everything, and dragged the 4-time champions into extra time. And the longer it went, the more you could feel the nerves spreading through the German side. You could see it in the body language, the heavy touches, the snatched shots, the long glances over at the bench. A team that was supposed to be cruising was suddenly clinging on, and the underdogs could smell it. And then came the moment that should have settled it. The moment that makes this one sting forever. Deep in extra time, Germany won a corner, swung it in, and Jonathan Tah rose and powered a header into the net. The German bench erupted. They thought they had done it. They thought they had escaped, that the giant had survived, that normal service had been restored at the death. And then the referee was sent to the screen, VAR. After an agonizing review, the goal was ruled out. Valdemar Anton was judged to have backed into and impeded the Paraguayan goalkeeper, Gil, stopping him from getting to the ball. No goal. The winner, chalked off. Germany had thought they were through, and instead, they were dragged, white-faced, towards the one place the rest of the world would have bet their house they were safe. A penalty shootout. Now, was it a robbery? German fans certainly think so, and you can understand why. To have a World Cup winner chalked off in extra time by a fractional, subjective call about where a defender was standing is the kind of decision that haunts a country for years. But here is the uncomfortable truth. By the cold letter of the law, the officials may well have had a point. If Anton genuinely blocked the goalkeeper's path and stopped him competing for that ball, then it is a foul, and the goal cannot stand, however savage the timing. And that is what made it so cruel. It was not a clear and obvious blunder you could rage at cleanly. It was a thin, technically defensible dagger, the kind of call that leaves you nothing to hold on to but the agony of what might have been. Think about how the Paraguayans must have felt walking to that halfway line. They were not just facing 11 Germans, they were facing 44 years of history, an unbroken record, the most fearsome reputation in the entire tournament. Every neutral watching assumed the same thing. The underdogs had had their fun, but now the penalty kings would do what the penalty kings always do. The aura was supposed to take over. And instead, the unthinkable unfolded, kick by kick. Because this time, it was the Germans whose nerve betrayed them. Kai Havertz missed. Nick Woltemate missed. And then Jonathan Tah, the man whose header had been cruelly disallowed minutes earlier, stepped up for a chance at redemption and missed too. 3 German penalties, 3 failures, on the one stage where Germans simply do not fail. Paraguay held theirs, kept their cool where the Giants cracked, and won the shootout 4-3. And just like that, it was over. For the first time in the entire history of the World Cup, Germany had lost a penalty shootout. The 44-year record, the perfect 4 from 4, the aura, the psychological weapon, gone, shattered by Paraguay on a single delirious night. The penalty kings were dead, and the 4-time world champions, one of the most successful nations in the history of the sport, were dumped out of the tournament in the round of 32. The first genuine giant to fall in the knockout rounds, and what a way to fall. In Paraguay, the country simply stopped. A national holiday was declared to celebrate a result that will be told and retold for generations. The night little Paraguay walked into the lion's den, survived a disallowed German winner, and then outnerved the unbeatable Germans at their own specialty. Julio Enciso, the kid who started it all with that 42nd-minute strike, a national hero. For a nation that had never been one of the World Cup's superpowers, knocking out the 4-time champions on penalties is the kind of story that doesn't feel real even as it happens. This is their greatest World Cup night, maybe their greatest football night, full stop. Think about the journey. Paraguay had not won a World Cup knockout game in a generation. They are not a nation drowning in superstars or stacked with players from Europe's biggest clubs. They are a team built on organization, defiance, and a flat refusal to know their place. And on this night, that was worth more than all of Germany's pedigree. Everybody thrown in front of a German shot, every desperate clearance, every minute they refused to break was building towards a shootout they had no business winning on paper. And then they won it anyway, holding their nerve in the exact instant the Giants lost theirs. That is the World Cup at its most beautiful. A small country standing, arms aloft, in the ruins of a 4-time champion. And for Germany, this is a humiliation that fits a deeply uncomfortable pattern. Because this is not the proud, ruthless Germany of old anymore. This is a team in a genuine modern decline at the World Cup. Remember, this is a country that crashed out in the group stage in 2018, the reigning champions going home before the knockouts even began. Then they crashed out in the group stage again in 2022, 2 consecutive World Cups, eliminated at the first hurdle. They finally made it out of the group this time, and were promptly knocked out in the very next round by Paraguay on penalties, surrendering the one record that was supposed to be untouchable. From the team that won World Cups and never blinked from 12 yards, to a team that can't get past the round of 32 and just lost its first ever shootout. The fall of German football, once unthinkable, is now simply a fact. Each of those exits came with its own excuse: a bad group, an off day, a generation in transition. But 3 World Cups in a row now end in disaster, and at some point the excuses run out, and you are just left staring at the scoreboard. The country that once treated the latter stages of the World Cup as its birthright now cannot even be sure of reaching them. So what does it all mean, beyond one unforgettable night for Paraguay? It means the last great certainty in the World Cup is gone. If Germany can lose a shootout, Germany, of all teams, then there are no safe bets left, no auras that can't be shattered, no giants who are guaranteed anything. The new, expanded World Cup is a meat grinder, and it has just claimed one of the biggest names of all, in the most poetic way imaginable, at the penalty spot, the very place that giant had ruled for 4 decades. The knockout rounds have barely begun, and they have already eaten a 4-time champion alive. Spain, Brazil, Argentina, France, every survivor left in the tournament watched Germany fall and felt the ground shift under their own feet. If the penalty kings can be dethroned at the penalty spot, then the rankings, the reputations, the history books, none of it is armor anymore. The kings are dead, and if it can happen to them, it can happen to anyone. Nobody is safe.